Hello, everyone. This is Eric with the Spirit of EQ. Welcome to the Spirit of EQ podcast. Today's episode is revisiting emotional intelligence.
Life is a journey. Spirit of EQ helps shape and guide the road ahead for individuals, leaders, teams, and organizations striving to realize their full potential through emotional intelligence. Spirit of EQ is a coaching and consulting company that assists individuals and businesses to reach their full potential by developing emotional intelligence. In business, managers and leaders recognize the value of training to develop leadership skills. What they may not realize is that those skills are far more effective when they pay attention to not only performance, but also to people. Emotional intelligence is a crucial skill because people drive performance and emotions drive people.
Joining me as always is Jeff East with the Spirit of EQ. Hey, Jeff, how are you?
Doing fine, and I hope all our listeners are too.
Great, Jeff. So, revisit. I've always found that to be a powerful tool, right? Yesterday, which in our area of the world was Mother's Day. So, happy Mother's Day late, because I'm not sure when you're going to hear this episode, but happy Mother's Day. And my wife was reading some old letters that her mom had written from like when my wife was a teenager. And it was a form of revisiting. And it was really kind of cool, Jeff, because it kind of gave her a glimpse into her mom's personality that she really hadn't been probably maybe that many years looking at. I mean, she didn't look at or hasn't taken the time to look at. So this idea of revisiting, tell us a little bit about where we're going to go today with this.
Well, we're not going to do a deep dive into a lot of this because we don't want that today. I think it was a good time to revisit this for people that have been listening to us for a while. Then we have some people that are relatively new listeners that maybe don't understand or aren't familiar with some of the things we talk about. So I thought it'd be a good time to just revisit the model that we use, which is from a company called 6 Seconds, about what is the basics of our model of emotional intelligence. The other thing to think, if you want, most of these topics are going to be covered in previous podcasts. So if one of the things we talk about strikes a chord, go back through our library and you'll be able to find a more than likely a whole podcast about one of these things. Now, you weren't as polished back then, so bear with us.
Yeah, well, I think, Jeff, you're being far too harsh because Jeff is an all-star podcaster and he knows it, but he would never say that to you guys. So one of the things that I want to also tell the audience is that if for some reason we didn't do a specific podcast episode on something we talk about today, you can always send us a note. It's just info@spiritofeq.com. And Jeff or I will get back with you. We can provide you with some resources or just maybe answer a specific question.
It might be the topic of another podcast.
You never know. All right, Jeff, here's a good one. And this is probably one that in our culture here in America, we've butchered this. Defining what emotions are. Now, before you go ahead and give us the scientific definition and how that plays into emotional intelligence, I need to set the table a little bit because many of us got our definition of emotions from like our parents, maybe a coach from high school or earlier. Maybe it was movies, exactly. And some of the mischaracterizations are things like you should never get angry. That's not good. Or we've heard this about men, right? The real men don't cry. So which really kind of implies you shouldn't be sad, right? So with all those mischaracterizations, set the record straight, could you?
Okay. Well, at the very basic level, emotions are chemicals. There's different parts of your brain, and I'm not going to get into all the different terms because I usually mispronounce them, but there's different parts of your brain, the amygdala is one, that are there to protect you. So as an example, I always like to use your out on a hike in Colorado and you're walking along and a bear jumps out at you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Your amygdala goes, oh, there's a bear. What do I do? So it's going to start dumping adrenaline and all kinds of other chemicals into your bloodstream to get you ready to either flight, run from the bear, to fight the bear, to freeze, the old play dead, or flop, which is to find somebody else to help you with this bear. That's what it's designed for, to get you ready for some kind of a big emergency, something that's there. But the problem with that is the best way to describe it, that part of your brain is not very smart. Okay, so it's going to react the same way if you're walking down the hallway at work and your boss jumps out of his office and says, "I need to talk to you," in a very stern voice.
Right.
The amygdala is going to go. It's going to equate your boss with a bear, which maybe that's true. I don't know, but
right.
It's going to do the same thing. So you're going to be ready to fight the boss, run from the boss, freeze up, or find coworkers to help you.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't know the difference is the best way to describe it. But the good thing with this is we can control our responses if we can wait about 6 seconds.
Yeah.
If when your boss jumps out, if you can take a deep breath, count to 10, do something for 6 seconds before you respond, the thinking part of your brain takes back over. Those chemicals are starting to get reabsorbed, into your body. So now you can have an appropriate response to your boss, because he might be angry at something that doesn't have anything to do with you, and you're the one that needs to help him solve it. You don't know what the situation is, but if you can wait that 6 seconds, they're there. So basically, emotions are there giving us information about what's going on around us. And you mentioned, Eric, about, like being angry is always bad. Emotions are neutral.
Mm-hmm.
They only become a good or bad or positive or negative when you decide to do something with them. Let's say that somebody at work is, constantly getting verbally abused by a coworker, and it makes you angry. That's okay to be angry about that. Now, what you do with that anger is whether it's good or bad. If you decide in your anger to start yelling at the abusive coworker or hit them or something like that, that's bad. But that anger can also be turned to, okay, I need to diffuse this situation. Maybe I need to have a talk with that abusive coworker and let them know that they're hurting this person. Something like that that's more reasonable. And that's that using that emotion to make a decision, which is what you just did. You made a decision that I'm going to approach this in a more civilized manner, I guess.
So it's probably a good segue into the second one, which is EQ decision making. How about you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, you use it to make decisions. Like I said, with the bear, you're going to have to make a life or death decision right then. Do I have a weapon to fight the bear? So you're making a decision then. But like what I described with your boss, it helps you make a decision on, okay, I'm going to calm down and I'm going to approach this with my mind open so that, is he really mad at me? Do I need to explain something? Or is he mad at somebody else and I'm just collateral damage? But you can use it to make decisions. And you can use it to make all kinds of decisions by listening to your feelings. If, you're going to buy a new house, let's say, and, you're looking at the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at the neighborhood. You're looking at this, all the things that we would normally look at if we're going to buy a new house, and the emotion you're feeling is happy and glad, and you're thinking, looking ahead, expectations, proceed. But if you have this little gnawing hesitation can be an emotion. It's telling you you're missing something. Maybe there's something here that you need to be aware of before you sign those papers to buy the house.
It's almost like apprehension, right?
Apprehension.
Which potentially can lead to things like fear. If if you stay in that loop, if you will.
Yeah, apprehension is just a mild form of fear. And
Yeah.
then, terror is an extreme form of fear.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're on a continuum. So you use that to make a decision. Okay, I need to revisit this. And then you revisit
Hmm.
this and you go, okay, now I see. Okay, I can live with that. I can move ahead. Or, whoa, that would be a major mistake. You
Right.
know, and um, on the simplest decision making, um, you're driving down the road and you've got a stale green light and it starts to turn yellow. You have to make a decision now.
Hmm.
You do that just, do I try to make it through the traffic light? But then you go, well, I can get a ticket. I can get in an accident. You use that to make decisions. Those things are going to be all involved in that.
Yeah, and I would also tell the audience that though we talk about, the 6 seconds of pause or calming before
Mm-hmm.
making a decision, or allowing that executive function of our brain to take over. In the case of a green, yellow, red light type thing, obviously you're not going to have that kind of time. You may have to call upon an EQ competency, consequential thinking,
Right.
to make that decision very quickly. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what those competencies can be there for.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you're going to talk a little bit about that in a bit,
Yeah.
but the next one is this acronym KCG, which I believe is know, choose, give, right?
Yes. One of the key cores of what we do with this model of emotional intelligence is uh, you have competencies, which we're going to talk about, but they're divided into three areas. And know is understanding who you are
Mm-hmm.
and what's going on with inside of you. And then choose is once you know what's going on inside of you, the choose is what am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
What is the response going to be to this? And then the give, the last part of that G is how am I going to respond? What is it that I'm actually going to do? And that helps you make those decisions. So it's just part of it. And when we do these, get into the companies, which maybe is a good time to do that now,
Yeah.
um, we'll do it. I'm going to pull them up so that I don't miss anything.
So as you look at that, Jeff, these competencies are housed inside of the model that we use with our clients.
Mm-hmm.
And they're competencies that are learnable. They're competencies that if you put in the work, the practice, you'll grow in them and they'll become tools that you can use as you are growing in your emotional intelligence. So,
Yes, exactly. Um, so let's just dive into it. So the know,
yeah.
the K of that model is enhance emotional literacy, which is basically learning to identify the emotions that you're feeling and then um, look around and see what's causing that emotion. If you feel
Hmm.
apprehensive, um,
Hmm.
you look at what's going on. Um, like I said before, emotions are not necessarily good or bad. If you're feeling joyful, it's probably a good idea to look around and see what is making me joyful. So
Hmm.
you want to figure out what is going on around me. It's a great way to do it. Is use your emotions for that. And from that you can use that information to move ahead. So yeah, enhancing your emotional literacy is just basically understanding what emotions are telling you, being able to identify the emotions, and like most of these, how well are you able to identify emotions in the people you're around? Can you tell
Hmm.
if someone is whatever that emotion? So
I want to stress there for the audience as well, Jeff, that um, the ability to pick up and get a sense of what other people are experiencing as it relates to their emotions, um, it goes in tandem with your growth in that regard. So
exactly.
the more that you know and the more literate you become, the better you're going to be able to get a sense of where they're at.
Okay, and the next one in this know yourself, I think, is an interesting one. Recognizing patterns. When I am
Hmm.
confronted with this, what do I normally do? How do I normally react to this situation? Um, and then you look at your results. If I react, if I always react this way, do I get the results that I want for this situation? Okay,
Hmm.
so you have to be able to look at it. Um, a way to look at this is, people that know you really well know what buttons to push to get you upset. So people can figure out, if I push this button with Eric,
Hmm.
I'm going to get the result I want, not the result that's best for him. So if you can
Mm.
start recognizing it, and then going back to what you said about knowing the emotions of other people, uh, you can use that for good or evil.
Yeah.
You can know what buttons to push to get somebody to react some way, but the other thing is understanding that you don't have to push that button. Okay, you're a manager, and you know that employee A, if there's going to be a big project on Monday, they want to know about it on Friday so they can get themselves ready. So you push the button of, hey, this is coming up on Monday. We're going to have to do this. But then employee B doesn't want to know that. They want to be able to not worry about work or think about work. So you push the button of not telling them, because if you did tell them, it's
Mm.
not going to be good for them. They're going to come in Monday morning just wadded up and not be able to do any work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
recognizing the patterns in other ones.
Well,
So
and that's a great one too for our audience to really remember that, all of these things typically can sit on the axis and they can go for good or for evil, bad or for good. But you're going to get the best results when you're thinking about others from the perspective of their good. And I know you know that, Jeff, and
mhm,
that's the premise of all the work we do. However, there's good to recognize it can go both ways.
right.
So let's move into the choose.
Okay. Uh, Applying consequential thinking, which is
Mm.
basically, if I do this, this is going to happen. It's pretty um, cut and dried. Understanding to take the time to think it through, to
Mhm.
know the results that might happen, because nothing's ever 100%, but to understand, like we talked about the traffic light thing, what are the consequences of me not stopping for that yellow light?
Mhm.
Okay, so that's applying consequential thinking. So that one's pretty easy. um, the next one is navigating emotions. So when I am feeling emotions, am I able to get through that emotion in a positive way? Can I um, figure out how to get through it? It's like navigate, just like your GPS navigates you someplace. But once again,
Mhm.
one of these other competencies is important. Your GPS can't take you someplace unless it knows where it is to begin with, which is
Yeah.
emotional literacy. So, just navigate emotions. And once again, this is one that is important to think about with other people. How can you navigate someone else's emotions? If someone is very angry, what can I do to help that situation, help them get through whatever it is?
Yeah.
Uh, Engage intrinsic motivation, I think, is very important, uh, because what is causing you to do what you do? Uh, are you buying a new car because you've looked at everything and, yes, I'm in the position, my old car is falling apart, I've got a lot of driving to do, whatever, I need to buy a new car? That's intrinsic motivation. You're doing it because you've thought the process through. I need to buy a new car.
Mhm.
Extrinsic motivation is all the commercials on television.
Right. Yeah. The constant barrage of media. Yes.
Yes. Or your neighbor got a new car.
Right.
Now I got to get a new car because they got a new car. So it's intrinsic. What is what's making you make decisions, what's making you do things, coming from your values, not what everybody else is telling you. So
Yeah.
we have to look at that. And then exercising optimism. Uh, that doesn't mean cheerleading. Uh, it needs to be honest optimism when, yes, you can see what can happen. You can see that uh, good things are going to come from this. Um, but being realistic about it, understanding that uh, if you're, let's say you're in the office and it's going to be a tough situation, you're the leader. If you just come in and start cheerleading, you've lost them.
Mm.
It's like cheerleading when you're behind, 28 points with 2 minutes to go in a football game. That's not going to change a thing. You're
Yeah,
actually
and
kind of
it's
silly.
and nobody's going to buy that speech.
But if you come into the office and say, "Hey, group, we have this very difficult project coming up. There's going to be some overtime. There's going to be some heartache, but I know we have the group that can do it. I know that if we work together, that's being optimistic in a positive way. But you need to make sure that it's honest. You know,
Yeah.
the old don't blow smoke.
Yeah.
Just don't do
Yeah.
that.
Right.
So those are
Right.
the ones in choose yourself. And I think the most important ones are in the give yourself.
Mm.
It's what makes the difference. And the first one is increase empathy. Um,
Mm.
Empathy is putting yourself in the other's place, which is different, I think, than sympathy, which is basically feeling sorry.
Mm-hmm.
You're actually doing some emotional risk there because you're putting yourself with that person. Um, if somebody wants to, if you want to dig a little bit deeper into empathy, just go on YouTube and look up Brene Brown and her video on empathy. It's
Mm-hmm.
still, I think, one of the best things I've ever seen for describing empathy. It's a little cartoon illustration from a talk of hers. And then our last competency is pursue your noble goal.
Mm-hmm.
And for some of you, that might be a concept that you haven't heard of before. Your noble goal is what makes you who you are, what gets you up in the morning. And it's interesting because with our definition, it's not a goal you can achieve. If your goal is to become the president of the company or make $10 million or this, that, or the other thing, that's not a noble goal because, you can possibly do that. But a noble goal is something that you're always working on. It's what you want people to say about you at your retirement or your funeral. The things that people are going to remember. They're not going to remember you made $1 million. They're going to remember, when I was going through the worst part of my life, this person was there for me with no agenda. So that's, what that is. And I think the last thing would really like to talk about is these competencies are learnable.
Mm-hmm.
There's something that you can work on if you want to work on, let's say you're pursuing your noble goal. There's some simple steps you can do. One, identify it. As an example with this one, just what is my noble goal? What do I want people to say about me? How am I going to achieve that? If you want to work on your emotional literacy, maybe at noon, lunchtime, write down the emotions you can remember. You're building that. They're all learnable, so that if there's something you want to work on, you can improve it.
Well, Jeff, I think your points within that are so well placed because the reality, at least in my estimation, I mean, the business world, the work world, the career world, whatever you want to describe it, it's been dominant in our culture for a really, really long time. And I use the analogy of that, if you ask someone, hey, you need to give up your vacation so you can finish this project, they'll probably raise their hand and say, okay, absolutely, I'm in, I'm committed. Hey, I want you to give up your vacation. Instead of going to vacation, I want you to spend a week just reflecting on your life and what it is you really, really want. People can recoil a bit on that idea.
Yes.
And though I'm not advocating that everybody has to be a monk somewhere, it just seems ironic that the thing that's really, quite frankly, the most important thing to work on is the thing that we work on the least. Now, I have great confidence in our audience, Jeff, that there are people that really do want to work on it. But I'll just stress again, the learnable part comes from putting in the work and practicing.
Yeah, we cannot say that enough, and it's constant.
Yes.
You have to keep working on it all the time, or just like an athlete, if he doesn't practice his craft of musician. There, this is our first mention of musicians today.
I was going to say we were due.
You could, one of the ones we've talked about before, Neil Peart, the drummer from the group Rush, if he quit practicing, guess what? He would have not been as great a drummer as he was. So
exactly.
It's practice, practice. That's just, that's life.
Yeah. So Jeff, you've really done a great job of outlining, the ideas around emotional intelligence, the competencies, and the life pursuits. So you've hit on a lot of the value of emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. Anything else on that realm as far as the value of EQ?
I think it's just the idea that when you become aware of the concept, you're going to start learning. And what will happen is, as you practice it, you'll find those decisions start coming together for you. Your decision of maybe changing a pattern will help change your noble goal, and they all work together. So the value of EQ is just making you a better you, I guess.
That's a great way to say it. That's a great way to say it. So with that, Jeff, as we come to a close, I want to thank you and thank the audience for tuning in. And I'd also like to remind you, so as always, we would like you to, if you can, we're very, very motivated to get great reviews. So if you can review us on whatever podcast platform you're listening, and that gives you the ability to leave comments about the show or the episode, and certainly the ratings, which, Jeff, I think we'd love a 5-star rating, right?
Oh, yes.
All right. Yes. Wonderful.
But using our emotional intelligence, if it's less than a 5-star, we'll explore that and see what we can do to change.
Yeah, you're always on mark there. So once again, thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we look forward to being with you the next time.